All right, everyone. A few days ago, of course, there was going to be a mass at St. Matthew's. I believe that the mass never actually ended up occurring. And several Supreme Court justices, by the way, were planning to be there, along with a host of other notable individuals. Enter louisgeri, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, decided to rig up a tent outside of the building. And he had over 200 handmade explosives on him and menaced officers and had a manifesto and everything in which he says that he doesn't like Catholics, Jews, ICE, or the Supreme Court. Since several members of the Supreme Court were slated to appear there that day, I think that the intent is pretty obvious. I think that that's a no-brainer. Once again, it's very interesting. You can have a venue in which you're going to have a lot of potential targets conglomerating in one place. And you have this dude rigging up a tent outside, acting sketchy. He's known to law enforcement because he's already been arrested before. But nobody, had any inkling that anything like this was going to go on. No, nobody had a clue. It's just like the Boston Marathon bombing. Well, yeah, the Chechens told us 2 years that the Tsarnaevs were being radicalized by Al-Qaeda pages, and we knew about it. We were literally told by Intel and looked into it, and they were making public Facebook posts praising Osama bin Laden and talking about all sorts of other crazy shit. But yeah, we didn't figure it was actually a threat. This happens all the time. It's almost like they want these attacks to happen. Interesting. So I'm wondering, which one are we going to find out? He recently converted to a certain religion. He's a member of some Antifa groups on the internet, or he's on antidepressants. One of those three things is probably true. Of course, the way that he was acting, according to reports, it sounds like he's batshit. Now, you have to be batshit to be a far leftoid radical anyway, and it's not an exoneration, of course, of any violence or attempted violence. But I have a feeling that there's an element of he went batshit on this one, considering what he was doing. He apparently bomb squad's already there. They've already got a perimeter set up, and he just randomly walks out of his tent to go piss on a tree, and they apprehended him then. Like, he wasn't even armed at that point. That's kind of weird, but I mean, that amount of explosives could have done quite a bit of damage. Probably the intent was to rig the tent up to blow, and then blow it up when people are filing inside or something like that. And we're not sure exactly the composition of those explosives, like, how much bang for your buck are you getting? Did he pack them in canisters with nails or something? Are we going to find out that he works as a chemist or something like that? All we know is that by his own admission, at least, he had a bone to pick with groups that are associated, I think, at this point, more with the Trump administration, like his Supreme Court nominees or ICE agents or Jewish people, especially in the wake of this, although that peace deal hadn't happened yet. I have a feeling that it's definitely politically motivated. It was definitely an attempted, a targeted attack, which could have done potentially a very large amount of damage. That's a lot of explosives. Again, we're not sure how big these explosives are. If he was playing with his chemistry set and said, "Oh, I accidentally made plastic explosive. Well, this can work," and he had 200 charges or something like that, yeah, that would take out a crowd of people real easy. And he was just rambling at the people. He's like, at first, he's like, "Oh, just back off. I'm gonna blow up this tree over here." He just randomly offers to blow up a tree. And then he tells people to pull back or, basically he's going to kill people. When he opens the tent, he's got a lighter in one hand and an explosive in the other. I think he probably thought about just lighting it and tossing it into the pile and blowing himself up too. I mean, again, with that amount of explosives, you'd think that the radius would be fairly large. So I don't know how far the officers would have to pull back to avoid injury and or death, because we're not sure the composition there. But this story has also, and this makes it even more creepy. It was talked about briefly by the legacy media. And like they still got a couple of page B articles, but it fell out of the news cycle awfully quickly considering the ramifications of a successful attack had it occurred in this situation. We could have been waking up to news saying three Supreme Court justices hospitalized with severe injuries, dozens of cops are dead, and the priest died too, and stuff like that. It could have been a mass casualty event. And then, by the way, the manifesto would have gotten probably immolated in the process, so we might not even know that this person based on what they wrote in there, it appears to be a leftist, which does not surprise me. They've been getting more and more and more violent lately. You know, look at what happened to Charlie Kirk. Look at what almost happened to Donald Trump on 2 different occasions, actually. This has happened, but look at what happened at Kavanaugh's house. That got brushed under the rug now, didn't it? And by the way, I think that dude just got sentenced and was given a fairly light punishment considering the fact that he was literally planning to kill someone and thankfully got stopped in the process of trying to do so. An attempt was made on a Supreme Court judge. The Supreme Court is drawing almost as much ire now as Trump, and it's coming mainly from the left. Although I would note that a lot of right-wing commentators are kind of puristic and they'll really ramble about any so-called conservative justice if they vote the wrong way. I have noticed this. Sometimes the takes are less nuanced. But the case of louisgeri, I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't care because he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison probably. The fact that this was not known to law enforcement and that someone could get that close to such a major venue and have like a tent concealing the fact that they've got a massive pile of explosives, I would think that it's a security breach, number one. And number two, it makes me wonder, was it due to incompetence or did somebody want the attack to occur? Like, yeah, we knew it was going to occur. We tried to let it happen. Much like they tried to let it happen with the shooter of Donald Trump in Butler. It is quite clear that the lapses were not simply unintentional. Maybe the locals and so forth, they knew what they were doing, but it looks like there was a bit of a drawdown. We saw this in one famous assassination, actually. We saw it right before JFK got brained, which by the second gunman, probably. There was a Secret Service stand down. You should look it up. It's a sad fact that everyone knows the Zapruder film, but very few people know about the existence of this different angle from behind the motorcade, actually, right before he turns onto the square. Very interesting. It's been happening for a while. Eyes wide shut mode. That's about all. Peace out.